Throughout the years, MapleStory has changed so much, and people who come back to the game might be taken aback by how many things that have changed. Whether you're an OG player that has been playing since pre-Big Bang and you want to get back into the game now, or maybe you stopped playing towards the end of the pandemic because life just got busy again. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can come back to the game properly and progress further than you've ever gone before. The game can be overwhelming and a lot of things change throughout every patch, but I'm going to show you guys all the things that I would do and the things that I currently do to make the game more enjoyable and make me progress way further than a lot of people. The first thing that I want to talk about are the worlds. So you'll notice that there's no such thing as like reboot anymore. Why is there no reboot? There's two categories, heroic and interactive. Basically, heroic is reboot. That's just the reboot worlds. We're named heroic now because our server in Global MapleStory is actually not perfectly in line with the Korean server anymore. Throughout all of history, we've always just been pretty much a copy of the Korean server, the original MapleStory server, and we just get copy paste everything that they get. But nowadays, we actually still get most of what they get, but we actually get our own custom events too, and our own updates presumably, which is actually a really big deal. Like, this was never really a thing before in our history, but it's happened because our server has grown so much. For those who don't know, the game is nowhere near as dead as it might have been. In fact, the heroic worlds, the reboot worlds, are actually so popular these days that the main server Chronos is actually like herma full, and they had to make a second reboot world just because of how many people enjoy playing reboot now. Reboot is like the main version of the game now. There's still the interactive worlds, which are like the OG reg servers that I'm sure a lot of you guys, when you quit, you played on these worlds, but the vast majority of players play on the reboot worlds now because it's just a better overall Maple experience for the average player. There are still benefits in playing on interactive world if you want the ability to trade, if you want the ability to have an economy and merch and all that stuff, then obviously you play on the interactive worlds. But for the vast majority of players, most people play on the heroic servers, which are what we used to know as reboot. Not only have the servers gotten more popular, the content space in general, like the amount of YouTube videos that are out there, the amount of Twitch streams that are out there, have gotten so much more popular too. So back in the day, there weren't that many creators and the content was pretty limited, but nowadays there's content for everything. It's gone to the point that there's even channels dedicated to just clipping Twitch streamers. Even the MapleStory category itself on Twitch has grown so much. There are so many more streamers than there have ever been. People break thousands of viewers on this category now, hundreds of viewers. It's crazy. This has never been seen before in even the content space. Like, it has grown so much, which goes to show that this game is actively growing and the category is being developed, and there is a really good future for the category. Now, you might ask yourself, why now? Like, what changed? Well, honestly, if you ask me, the reason why I think the game is growing a lot and it continues to grow and the YouTube grows and the Twitch space grows, all that stuff, is because they've been just doing a better job with the game. To be honest, they've been adding a lot of quality of life. If you haven't played since like a few years ago versus now, the amount of quality of life is insane. Like, so many things are easier in the game, so many things are more convenient. You don't have to deal with like crashing as much or any like weird nonsense like that anymore. Obviously it still happens sometimes, like double maintenances still happen, but it's just nowhere near as often as it used to be, and it just makes the game a lot more enjoyable. And also, because just in general technological advancements in the world, we've become a lot more connected through Discord and, you know, YouTube videos and Twitch streams and stuff like that. So it just makes people feel a lot better playing the game because the community has just gotten a lot bigger. Now, that actually leads me to my next point on getting back into this game, which is Discord. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys might think that while you're playing the game, people are kind of just like statues. Nobody's really talking in game. The chats are kind of dead or something like that. But what's really going on is that everybody has been moved to Discord. Discord is the by far main way of communicating with other Maplers. It's just more convenient. There's a lot of resources that help you there versus in game, it's just a chat. So everybody kind of moved on to Discord, and the social aspect of the game is heavily reliant on Discord nowadays. So I think it's really important that if you don't have Discord, Discord, you should make an account and download the app. There's also on Discord on the phone or Discord on the browser. You don't even have to download the app. You could just open it up on the browser. And the reason why Discord is so useful is because there are a lot of different Discord channels that help you in this game. So what does that mean? When you join a Discord, there are multiple servers that you could join, Discord servers for different things. Now, this server, for example, the Maple Legion server, obviously I'll have it linked below, is extremely useful to a lot of people. So let's say, for example, you are a upcoming Lara main, right? You want to play Lara, you can find the Lara Discord. You could just press join and you'll be able to have access to all these different channels on the left side that give you a lot of information about Lara. So usually how these Discords work is there's going to be maybe a few questions that you have to answer just so you could get access, and it tells you how you can gain access here. If you just react to this role, it means you agree to the rules, and a little cute thing they have is which spirit is your favorite one, and then you gain access to all these channels, and you can see how there are channels based off training. You could find out where you can train, you could find out how to do your covert, you could find out how to boss, and you could talk about your experiences playing the class. You could join a community, stuff like this, like wow, I just leveled up. There's just a lot. Usually how these channels work is there is an FAQ, which means frequently asked questions, and it has a ton of information that probably people have asked before you, and you could read up on it and learn so much about your class. So this is why Discord is so important, because there's just so many resources on Discord, especially for class information, guides, and all this stuff. It's all here, and it's all just for free. You could just get it whenever you want. Let's say there's something that's not in the FAQ and you want to find out something specific. So let's say I want to find out about Lara's like second mastery or something very specific about Lara's 6th job. So I would just search Lara second mastery, and then you'll see this right here. General, Lara's second mastery is better than enhanced origin, but still worse than our first mastery kind of man. And then you can read up on the conversation, see what people are talking about it. How much FD is Lara's first and second masteries? People are going to be talking about it. It's honestly really, really simple, and you could just find out any information that you want, and it's really useful. Now, there aren't just only class Discords, there's also guild Discords as well. So for example, for me, my guild Discord, where we just have our guild. Our guild, when you join the guild, you get a link to join the Discord, and you could talk to all of your guildies. You could set up a boss carries, you could recruit for parties through Discord, you could ask any questions that you want, and you could join voice chats where people are hanging out together. So Discord is very, very useful. It helps you progress through the game. It helps you join a community. It helps you make friends. And I think it's very, very important in the modern day Maple to be on Discord, because if you're not on Discord, you're honestly missing out on potentially so many things that can make the game way easier for you. This next resource that I want to show you guys is called maplemaps.net. Obviously, there's so many different maps in MapleStory these days, so many different maps, like hundreds of maps, and you might not know where to train or what your training rotation is or how big your skills hitboxes are, stuff like that. But this website is a super good tool for you guys so that you can learn how to train. Let's say you're coming back, you're level like 225 and you want to train in Arcana and you don't know where to train. So you hear through your class Discord that like this is a really good map, but you don't know how to navigate it, right? So you would just click on the map, click on rotation helper, and let's just say you are a Adele, right? Let's just say you're an Adele. So because you're an Adele, you have your main cleave ability. So you can see what the hitbox on cleave is. You can see like, oh wow, like so I could just like kind of jump around, press cleave, and it'll hit everything. And then you could also see your Rain of Destruction, how big this skill is, meaning you could probably place it in the middle over here. Or your Storm, which is like an AoE skill that follows you around you, and you could just have it as you run around the map. So it's really, really useful and can help you figure out how to train in maps. And they have every map. It's not just like early game stuff. They have everything all the way until like Carcian, which has like the highest level mobs in the game. So the point that I'm trying to make is there are a lot of resources for you nowadays. Back in the day, it was kind of just like Basil Market and Hidden Street, these like forums where you just had to like ask people what to do. But nowadays there's fully blown like almost programs that you could use, and websites and Discords that just have like so much information and so many things that make things way more convenient for you. One of the most useful resources that they have nowadays is the Legion Solver. So for those who don't know what Legion is, just to be super quick, basically it's the system in the game that gives you a bunch of stats based off of how many characters you have on your account and what level they are, are, right? And when you want to get these stats, you have to place the pieces on the grid and fill in the areas that give you the stats. And some people, you know, you don't want to figure that out yourself. So there's the Legion Solver where you could input how many characters you have, what level they are, highlight whichever areas you want filled up. And if you press start, it'll just tell you what pieces go where. And it just saves you so much time. There's even Star Force calculators as well. So it tells you how much money you need to save on an item. So let's say level 200 item, like I'm starring an arcane item. I'm going to star catch, obviously, and it's on a 5, 10, 15. I'm going to calculate, and it's going to say like, oh, average 2 booms, and I'm going to need around 20 Bomesos. So you can even set your expectations through calculators that just solve things for you. I also have lots and lots of guides on my channel that I actively update and upload all the time. For example, this flames guide that I just made the other day, there's so many things that are involved with flames. Some of you might not even know what flames are because it came out in like 2018 and maybe you didn't play since before then. Or maybe you do know what flames are, but you don't know exactly how they work or what to settle on. So even I have so many different guides on my channel that I'm actively making, where to train, all these different things. The next topic that I want to talk about on this game is kind of like the meta right now and the way that I view this game. I view this game basically in 3 stages because obviously back in the day, like pre-Big Bang and stuff like that era, it's like the meta was like, oh, you go do party quests, right? Or maybe you leech XP at Lionheart Castle or something like that. And then even not too long ago, the meta was you make a Kana farmer and you go farm in Bye Bye Station, or you go farm at D Cup 1, or whatever era that you were playing in. I want to talk about what's relevant nowadays because a lot has changed. Basically, the way that I look at it is this game is in 3 different sections. The first section of your progression is everything that you do to prepare to grind in the grandest zones. So these zones now are like the main part of the game. Arcane River, all these areas that some of you might have known and you remember when they came out. Maybe you remember when Latch came out. You remember when Fifth Job came out, stuff like that. This is kind of just like the very early game nowadays. And you get accelerated to level 260, which is past these zones pretty quickly nowadays, especially with hyper burns and events. So all this stuff, like, it's all just almost like the tutorial these days. People used to say 0 to 200 is the tutorial. Nowadays, honestly, it's like 0 to 260 is the tutorial. So everything that you do to prepare to grind in the grandest zones is like the first section of the game. So that's doing your Legion, doing your Link skills, leveling to 260, making Meso and drop gear. And in fact, I actually have a video on this topic on everything that you should do and prepare for by the time you're level 260. And thank you guys for watching my videos, by the way. This video did really, really well. So that's like the first section of this game. And then I would say the second section of this game is grinding in. This second section of the game, in my opinion, is where a lot of people kind of just, they get stuck because they can't really make it to the third section of the game, which I will talk about. Because grinding in Grandis and getting to this point, in my opinion, what I'm talking about is between level 260 and 285, which is a huge range. But once you unlock all your symbols, you have made it pretty deep into the game because you're level 285, which is a pretty high level. Between 260 and 285, you do a lot of things. You start clearing a ton of bosses. You get way stronger. You do your Black Mage, you liberate your Genesis weapon, all those things. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, again, I actually have videos about it. I know it sounds like I'm just plugging my videos, but honestly, like, I thought this through. Like, I'm making these videos for a reason. So everything you should do to get to level 275, talking about Genesis liberation weapons, all that stuff. And honestly, for a lot of people, this is the most fun part of the game as well, because you start getting a lot stronger very quickly. Everything right now revolves around the 6th job. If you didn't know there was a 6th job, now you know there's a 6th job, and everything revolves around 6th job. 6th job gives you so much damage these days. So all the bosses that you might have thought were hard before, like Lotus and Damien, Lucian and Will, these bosses are just like jokes now. These bosses are jokes. And the grandest bosses are the ones that like people are looking at. Saren, Kalos, Kaling, even Black Mage, to be honest with you. These are all the bosses that people are like working towards because that's just where the direction of the game is headed nowadays. And by the time you're 285, you'll have all these bosses knocked out and you'll enter the third part of the game. And the third part of the game is the min-maxing part of the game. So you're 285, your gear is probably mostly done for the most part, and the only things that you got to work on are the fine details. Like, for example, hitting 9k Legion instead of 8k Legion, getting boss familiars, getting a perfect inner ability, stuff like that. It's just like the tiny details. But the thing about the tiny details is they actually take a very long time because it's just very slow in general. And most people would say they have a very fulfilled experience with the game by the time they're at this point. So that's the way that I view this game in like 3 big different chunks. There's like the early game, there's like the grandest zone, and then there's like the end game. Some very important things to mention about what I said is that a lot of it can be done with just your main character. You don't need a secondary character to farm on. You don't need like a Kana farmer or anything like that. You kind of just grind on your main these days, and that's it. You make your training gear on your main. Training gear is very, very important these days. I have a whole video about training gear, how to get it, how to cube it, and what items to get it on and stuff like that. It's very, very important these days because almost all the resources that you get from this game, you can get them more often if you have really good drop gear. So everything from fragments to even mesos to boss drops, stuff like that. If you have really good drop gear, you will get way more resources. So it's very, very important to get it and to get it on your main character as well. Back in the day, it didn't matter that much if you didn't have a lot of drop because you had Kish and Totem and all these things that enhanced your spawn rate so much that like you would get good rates regardless. But nowadays, you really need to optimize for your drop gear, and that's what people do. They try to get as much drop gear as possible and they grind. They grind. Another thing that you could do these days that wasn't really a thing before is boss mules. So boss mules are essentially other characters on your account that you have funded to a certain level so that they can start clearing bosses and they could sell the crystals that the bosses drop and you make money that way. So that's basically like the 2 paths of progression is you train your main, and then the extra resources that you get on your main, you put them on a boss mule, and then the boss mule kills bosses and gets you money for it. And that's what everybody does these days. So in my opinion, I think this type of meta is way better than like Kana farming because it makes you play your main. It makes you play the character that you like. You don't need a second PC to like kiss yourself or anything like that. And you also get to try out a bunch of other classes that maybe you have a little bit of interest in, but you don't want to main. Another thing that I want to mention that's really good about this game right now is the class meta. Now you're going to hear a lot of different opinions about the meta. Like, what class should I play? Are these classes not worth it? Like, will I just be bricked? I'll never get into a party and all these things, right? The truth is that the vast majority of classes are perfectly fine for playing this game, progressing. Like, you can get to endgame on almost any class in this game. Now, why did I say almost? Technically, you could get to endgame on any class, even the best class in the game, Lara, but the reason why people wouldn't necessarily recommend a class like Lara or a class like Luminous is because these classes just do very little damage in the current endgame format. Because the endgame format right now is very burst oriented, right? So classes that don't have a crazy burst just won't do that well in the endgame. Does it mean that it's literally impossible for the classes to clear? No, not necessarily. It's just harder than if you had a meta comp, which is just how it is, right? Like any game that you play, if you play the optimal super strong party comp, you're gonna clear a boss easier than something that's not super optimal. But the good thing is that type of like party comp meta and like you have to optimize for all these things, that's only in like the hyper endgame where that's really relevant. Everything else in the game, like 99.9% of the game, you can play whatever you want, any party comp that you want, and you'll clear the bosses perfectly fine. Like nobody's gonna say like, oh, I don't want a Lumi for my Dark Knell clear, I don't want a Lumi for my Black Mage clear, I don't want a Lumi for my Saren clear. Like nobody's gonna say those things. Like it's perfectly fine. The thing that matters the most is whether you have the gear to even do it and whether you're reliable. And when I mean reliable, it means like you're not gonna die out, you have a good schedule, you're easy to communicate with, stuff like that. Only in like the hyper endgame, people are gonna stress out and be like I'd rather have a Nightwalker than a Kaiser, for example. The point I'm trying to make is it's really good to know that you could play pretty much anything you want. Back in the day, like there was pretty much like classes that just couldn't clear shit. Like when I was playing Hayato back in the day and I was trying solo H Lucid, Hayato, no matter how strong you were, it didn't have enough lines in its kit to clear H Lucid. It was literally impossible. But that's just like not a thing these days. So it's just gotten way better that way. The last thing that I want to talk about is to remember that this game is for fun. I've seen lots of people take the game way too seriously, and that's why they quit. That's why they play seasonally or anything like that. It's just a game. It's just for fun. Try not to compare yourself to others too much. I have seen lots lots of people get tilted to the point that they quit the game just because somebody else got lucky and they didn't. That's just how it is. There's RNG systems in the game, and some people are going to get lucky. You probably got lucky yourself, but you don't remember it. You only remember the times you got unlucky. But if you have any questions about this game whatsoever, please leave a comment. I do read all of my comments. And I hope this video helped you guys out. This is the way that I look at the game right now in the current day. I think Discord's really important. I think YouTube and Twitch streams have gotten so much better. So the information out there has gotten so much better. I think the game got easier and it's getting more and more popular, which is proof in just how many people play in the heroic reboot worlds that they even made a second server, a second reboot server, because of how popular it is. With that all being said though, if you enjoyed this video, maybe consider subscribing or sharing it to somebody who's trying to get back into the game. If you want to watch me play almost every single day, pull up to my stream where you guys can talk to me directly. And of course, have a wonderful day. Shout out to my members, Blazefire, Shooms, Uju, Shagad, Ravi Espa, Grim4K, Koga, Pabo, Picolnir, Jesse B, Dante Victory, Zats, CK, and Assassin510. I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you so much to everybody who has submitted fan art throughout all this time. I will be forever grateful to all of you, and have a wonderful day.